The movie begins by introducing us to Yang Dai-soo, a Korean scientist who is conducting a daring experiment. He's trying to bring his deceased daughter back to life by injecting a mysterious substance into her lifeless body. At the same time, the police are aware of Dai-soo's crazy experiment and decide to intervene. They rush into the experiment room, urging Dai-soo to stop and release his daughter's body. But Dai-soo is stubborn and ignores their warnings, continuing his experiment. As a result, he gets arrested. A few moments later, a massive earthquake strikes Seoul. Skyscrapers crumble, and even the laboratory, where Dai-soo was conducting his experiment, is not spared. Fast forward 3 years, and Seoul has turned into a desolate wasteland. The city is in ruins, and finding clean water and food is a daily struggle. Among the survivors is a young man named Choi Ji-won, who has adapted to this harsh new world. He hunts for food using a bow and arrow, and one day he spots a large crocodile nearby. Ji-won takes careful aim and manages to immobilize the crocodile. However, the crocodile starts moving again and begins chasing him. Ji-won seeks refuge in a nearby car and is saved by his foster uncle Namsun, who skillfully beheads the giant crocodile with a machete. Following the devastating earthquake, a girl named Hund Suna and her grandmother, Yan, have made their home in Bus District, a small settlement where survivors have gathered. They lead a simple life in their small house. One day, Yansu informs Suna that Namsun and his nephew are selling the prey they've hunted at the local market. Excited, Suna suggests they go to the market to buy some of Namsun's fresh catch. When they arrive at the bustling Bus District market, they see a crowd of people lining up to get their hands on the meat sold by Namsun and Chuan. In this new world, traditional currency is no longer in use, so people have adopted a barter system for trade. Everyone in the queue has brought valuable items to exchange for a portion of the hunted meat. One woman offers jewelry, but Namsun declines as he has no use for it, and instead he's willing to trade a snake he caught. Shortly thereafter, Suna and Yansu approach with a scarf, hoping to exchange it for some of the crocodile meat that's up for sale. Recognizing each other and grateful for the past help they've received, Namsun and Ji-won generously give them several pieces of crocodile meat. Suna even begins to consider Namsun and Ji-won as her brothers due to their kind actions. At the same time, a gang led by Eunpauji arrives in the Bus District with news that their boss, Tiger, is searching for someone in the area. Eunpauji attempts to take Suna, but Ji-won, who secretly harbors feelings for her, steps in to defend her. However, Ji-won is outnumbered and overpowered by the gang members. Witnessing this, Namsun intervenes and uses his strength to defeat all the gangsters with his bare hands. After defeating the gang, Namsun interrogates Eunpauji to find out who had sent them. During the confrontation, Namsun discovers a bottle of clean water in Eunpauji's pocket, which surprises him because clean water is a rare commodity. Eunpauji explains that he received the water from Tiger. Namsun decides to let Eunpauji go, but instructs him to deliver a message to Tiger, informing him of their defeat. Upon hearing Namsun's name, Eunpauji and his gang are shocked and flee in fear, as they never expected to be defeated by a fighter as renowned as Namsun. Once the gangsters have left, Namsun tends to Ji-won's injuries. Meanwhile, the woman with jewelry watches in admiration as Namsun courageously defeats the gang members. Sometime later, Namsun and Ji-won decided to head back to their own home, which wasn't too far from Suna's house. As they passed by Suna's place, they noticed a woman named Young Nam accompanied by well-dressed individuals. Young Nam offered Suna and her family a special apartment for teenagers and their families, complete with daily meals and various amenities. Namsun thought it would be a good idea for Suna to accept this offer, especially for Yansu's well-being due to her age and frailty. With Namsun's advice, Suna eventually agreed to Yang Nam's proposal. Although saddened by Suna's departure, Ji-won promised to visit her frequently in the new apartment. As a parting gift, Ji-won gave Suna a knitted hat, and Suna gave Ji-won one of her drawings. That night, Ji-won hung Suna's artwork in his room, reflecting on her move with young numbers. Meanwhile, Namsun found himself unable to sleep, looking at a photo of a young girl in his room. Realizing that Ji-won was still awake, Namsun invited his nephew for a hunting trip. Meanwhile, under the guidance of young Nam, Suna, and Yin Su embarked on a journey to the special teenage apartment, along with several other people who had chosen to stay there. As they walked through a grassy field, a girl named Yi Zhu Yi approached Suna and introduced herself. When Zhu Yi learned that Suna was the same age as her, she was thrilled and invited Suna to be friends. After traveling for some time, Yan Su and an elderly man grew tired, prompting Yang Noun to instruct her subordinates to take them to the clinic for immediate treatment, assuring Suna that they would be reunited with Yan Su after reaching the apartment. With Suna persuaded, Yang Nam led the group to continue their journey until they reached the designated pickup location. However, Yan Su and the elderly man were secretly killed by two of Yang Nam's henchmen. Surprisingly, Jiwon and Nam's son witnessed the murder while they were hunting nearby and attempted to intervene. Even after Jiwon and Namsen killed the two men, they came back to life like unkillable zombies. Facing this bizarre situation, Namsen and his nephew wondered how these seemingly dead attackers could return to life. Just as Namsen was getting overwhelmed by the zombie-like assailants, a woman named Yi Yan-ho came to his rescue by beheading one of them who was about to attack Namsen. After ensuring the situation was under control, Namsen and Ji-won promptly buried Yan-su. The following morning, Nam-sun and Ji-won approached Yan-ho, who was still at the scene of the previous night's attack, and inquired about her identity. Meanwhile, Suna had already boarded a vehicle with Ju-ye and the others on their way to the apartment. Back with Yan-ho, she introduced herself to Nam-sun and Ji-won as a member of the South Korean Air Force. She explained that after the devastating earthquake a few years ago, her unit had discovered an apartment, which they converted into a shelter for survivors. Ki-soo later arrived, claiming to be a doctor, and was allowed to stay. However, Yun-ho and her subordinates eventually uncovered Ki-soo's sinister experiments on military personnel. When she reported this to her superior, Surgeon Kwon, he defended Ki-soo and ordered her capture, leading Yun-ho to flee. After sharing her story, Yun-ho sought Nam-sun's assistance in rescuing her subordinates, who were still at the apartment. On the other hand, Suna and her group arrived at the apartment, where they received a warm welcome from the residents. Even Ki-soo greeted them, referring to the place as their new home. As a gesture of hospitality, Ki-soo offered drinks to Suna and the others before showing them to their respective rooms. Upon entering her room, Suna couldn't believe the spacious and well-equipped accommodations, a stark contrast to the hardships she had experienced in her district. Back with Nam-sun, Ji-won, and Yun-ho. When Nam-sun noticed Yun-ho's water bottle, it reminded him of Lun Pa-chi's bottle, which had been obtained from Tiger. Therefore, Nam-sun intended to meet with Tiger to uncover how the gangsters had managed to acquire clean water. In their headquarters, Tiger observed a brawl between his henchmen and a rival gang from another area. Just then, Namsen, accompanied by Ji-won and Yun-ho, confronted Tiger. Sensing a challenge, Tiger and his gang attacked the newcomers. Through his martial skills, Namsen defeated all the gang members, including Tiger himself. Meanwhile, at the apartment, Suna approached Kwon and inquired about Yansu's whereabouts, leaving the surgeon unsure of how to respond. Yang Nam, who had overheard Suna's question, informed her that Yang Su was still at the clinic receiving medical care. Shortly after, all the new apartment residents gathered for an orientation session. Teenagers like Suna and Ju Yi were to attend educational classes, while others, such as Ju Yi's parents, were assigned the task of purifying the apartment's water supply. Back at the gangster's hideout, Nam's son continued to interrogate Tiger's henchmen, who had regained consciousness, but they refused to provide information about the clean water. Growing frustrated, Nam's son resorted to further force, including confronting Tiger himself. Finally, Tiger confessed that they obtained clean water by selling teenagers to a military group based in an apartment. Meanwhile, Suna and Zhu Yi arrived in their new classroom, where young Num, their teacher, asked them to introduce themselves to their classmates. Suna began to notice the peculiar behavior of the students and grew suspicious about hidden secrets in their new home. Before class began, Ki-soo, accompanied by soldiers, entered and emphasized the importance of drinking water for health. He distributed water bottles to all the students and urged them to drink. Suna took the opportunity to inquire about her grandmother, who had not yet joined them in the apartment, and would remain there for several more days. With mounting inconsistencies in the apartment, that night, Suna covertly explored various rooms to uncover the truth. Meanwhile, in the workers' area, Junyee's parents attempted to defy the guards, who prevented them from seeing their daughter. Ki-soo, alerted by the disturbance, entered the workers' quarters and ordered his henchmen to escort Junyee's parents to his laboratory. At the same time, Suna entered Ki-soo's room, where she stumbled upon the doctor's diary. It contained notes detailing experiments aimed at reviving humans. As Suna read through Ki-soo's writings, her suspicions intensified, believing that the apartment served as a site for the doctor's crazy experiments. To confirm her suspicions, she ventured into other rooms connected to Ki-soo's quarters and stumbled upon Chu-yi, who lay unconscious, having been used as an experiment by the doctor. Just as Suna contemplated rescuing Zu-yi, Hee-soo abruptly returned with Junyee's parents, prompting Suna to hide in panic. When Junyee's parents entered the experimental room, they were horrified to find a headless girl inside a box, her heart still beating. Nearby, their daughter lay unconscious, having been subjected to Kai-soo's experiments. Seeing what had been done to their child, Junyee's parents grew increasingly furious with Kai-soo in such a way. Suddenly, Zhu-yi began convulsing, sending Kai-soo into a panic as he checked the experiment's results on a monitor. Sadly, Ki-soo's experiment on Zhu-yi failed, resulting in her losing her life. Enraged by the doctor's actions, Zhu-yi's parents confronted him, but Ki-soo showed no remorse and ultimately killed them both. Suna, hidden nearby, began to feel terrified and tried not to make a sound, but Ki-soo eventually. Meanwhile, Namsan, upon learning of Ki-soo's wicked experiments, devised a plan to rescue everyone targeted by the doctor, including Suna. Eun-ho informed him that the apartment was heavily guarded by soldiers. Namsan explained that they would use Tiger to gain easy access to the apartment. The following morning, Namsan put his plan into action, bringing Tiger with him to convince the guards to let them in. When the guards refused to open the gate, Namsan accelerated his car. At high speed, crashing through the entrance of the apartment, Ji-won and Eun-ho, following closely behind, joined Namsan in confronting Kwan's forces, engaging in a battle until they defeated all the soldiers. Meanwhile, Suna endured great pain as Ki-soo continued his experiments on her. Eun-ho then led Namsan and the others to an underground room in an attempt to rescue her subordinates. However, upon arriving, they were shocked to discover that Eun-ho's subordinates had transformed into monsters and were attacking mindlessly. This forced Namsan and his team to defend themselves and ultimately kill Eun-ho's subordinates. At this point, Eun-ho had not anticipated the extent of Ki-soo's insane experiments in the apartment. Shortly thereafter, Namsan directed his team to search for Suna after incapacitating several soldiers through explosions. More of Kwan's troops arrived due to the commotion, and they launched an attack, prompting Namsan to instruct Eun-ho and Ji-won to continue their mission while he dealt with the soldiers. As they reached the upper floor, Eun-ho, who had already taken out several guards, finally encountered Kwan. Feeling that she had unfinished business against her superior, Eun-ho ordered Ji-won to find Ji-won wasted no time and continued his search for Suna, while Namsan, having defeated all the troops on the lower floor, planned to join his friends on the upper floor. Returning to Eun-ho, who was locked in combat with Kwan, it became clear that she was struggling against Kwan's relentless attacks. Seeing Eun-ho's vulnerability, Kwan offered her the chance to rejoin his troops, but Eun-ho firmly rejected and retaliated by attacking Kwan with a knife. Kwan responded by brutally beating Eun-ho until she lost consciousness. Meanwhile, Jae-won had successfully located the classroom where Yang Nam was teaching. He held Yang Nam at gunpoint and demanded to know where Suna was. As he made his way through the corridor toward the experimentation room, Kwan appeared to be attempting to intercept Ji-won, who had Yang Nam as a hostage. Fortunately, Nam's son arrived and challenged Kwan to face him, allowing Ji-won to proceed and rescue Suna. Inside the experimentation room, Kisu began to cough up blood due to the serum he had injected into his own body. In a weakened state, Suna, aware of his condition, told Kisu that all his efforts would be in vain because he could never bring her daughter back to life. A little later, G1 managed to locate the experimentation room to rescue Suna. Unfortunately, one of Kisu's henchmen in the room was able to incapacitate Juan by striking him on the head from behind. Realizing that the situation was becoming increasingly dangerous, Kisu instructed Yang Nam to assist him in placing his daughter's body inside a suitcase so that he could make his escape. In the apartment corridor, Nam's son was still facing Kwon, who had somehow risen again after nearly being killed by Nam's son. Understanding that Kwon had been transformed into a zombie as a result of Kisu's experiments, Namson forcefully threw Kwon's body into a glass block in the apartment building and proceeded to decapitate the surgeon using the shards of the glass block. During the chaos, Kisu purposely set off a grenade in the experimentation room to eliminate all traces of his research, which tragically took the life of Yan Nam. But Yang Nam didn't survive. Shortly after, Nam's son entered the experimentation room, where he found Juwon and Suna alive, much to his relief. Meanwhile, Kisu found himself in the apartment courtyard, facing the anger of the people whose children had been used as subjects for his experiments. On the other hand, Yunho regained consciousness and immediately began searching for Nam's son and the others who had just exited the experimentation room. Together, they hurriedly looked for Kisu, who was indiscriminately attacking people with a long-barreled weapon. Namson attempted to halt Kisu's violent actions by firing a warning shot and demanding the doctor's surrender. However, Kisu appeared unresponsive to Namson's command, especially after discovering that the container holding his daughter's body had been destroyed. But in a swift turn of events, Namson thwarted Kisu's plans by shooting the doctor dead, putting an end to the madness. A little while later, things in the apartment began to settle down, and Yunho expressed her gratitude to Namson and the others for helping to resolve the issues in the building. She had a vision of turning the apartment into a haven for survivors. Meanwhile, Namson, Jaiwon, and Suna decided to go back to Bus District and continue with their lives there. Before heading home, Namson and Jiwon broke the news to Suna about Yensu's passing. They accompanied her to her grandmother's grave to pay their respects. As the film concluded, we saw Suna back in high spirits, participating in the Bus District market. She was assisting Namson and Jiwon in selling the results of their hunting efforts. More or less from the story, it's better to listen to the warnings of others and not stubbornly pursue experiments that could lead to disaster. Plus, if you ever come across a giant crocodile, it's probably best to leave it alone. Thank you for watching this movie recap. I hope you enjoyed it and gained a better understanding of the plot. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down below with your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more movie recaps and other content. Your support helps us continue to create great videos like this one. Thank you again, and we'll see you at the next one.